Hey guys, welcome to Ringsiders Wrestling. Jamie here with Callum, as always. Hi Callum. And we are joined by a very special guest today. She is Aria Blake. Hello Aria, how are you?
Hello, how are you guys? I'm good.
Thank you for joining us. We're good. We're surviving the weather. It's like a storm at the minute over here in the UK. It's ridiculous.
It's been non-stop rain for about the last 5 days. So we've got flood warnings now, but that's typical British weather. I'm guessing wherever you are in the States, it's actually quite nice.
At the moment, yeah. Florida, it rains like once a day for like maybe 20 minutes or so. But I mean, it's like hurricane season, so it's kind of wild. It's like, it depends where we're at in the weather. It's been good though.
Yeah. I mean, I can't imagine Florida has like, I've been to Florida a few times, and every time I've been around April, May time, it's always been amazing weather. I can't imagine it being anything other than that in Florida.
Oh yeah, very warm, very humid.
Yeah, it's just horrible here. It's literally, I'm terrified that my fence is going to get blown down. That's how bad the wind is at the moment. It's
oh no.
I've only just put it back up. So I'm terrified that the wind's going to knock it back down. But anyway, we don't need to talk about the weather, do we? We're not going to bore you with that crap. And also, how have you been? Obviously, there's a pandemic going on apparently at the moment. So how are you coping with that at the minute? I'm guessing, obviously, no wrestling going on. What have you been up to?
Yeah, there's that. No wrestling for me at the moment because the indies aren't really running, especially like where I am. I've seen some shows start to come back here and there, but I'm kind of like of the mindset of like, okay, well, if they're coming back, I'll let a couple other people go test the waters first. And if it goes well, it goes well. But yeah, no wrestling besides like getting to go to like the training schools and stuff with a couple of my friends here and there. So been able to get it in a little bit, but no live events or anything like that. And I don't even know when that'll happen again.
Yeah, we've seen that there's been like a few shows popping up now and then, like Warrior Wrestling, for example, and GCW, and they have been socially distant shows. They've been done really well, but apparently, like it's still a long way off until things are, back to normal with indies. I think it's the indies which have been hit the hardest, really. Obviously, they depend completely on live shows. And when you don't have the shows, it's going to take a hit. But it's nice to see that there are shows like starting to come back, like with Warrior, GW. So you still think it might be a while until you're back in the ring?
I kind of think so. Yeah, like some of the bigger indies are coming back, which is good. So, like I'm pretty sure my boyfriend is wrestling at Warrior Wrestling like in September, for example, but like, yeah, I don't know when my schedule is going to resume. Someone emailed me like for a booking in November and I'm like, yeah, but we'll see like where we're at.
It's really hard to tell, isn't it? Because I remember when the first hit back in say February, March time, I thought, oh, right, well by June, July, things might be back to normal. It gets to June, July time and it hadn't like shown any signs of slowing down. And now we're in August. It still seems like it might be the rest of the year until, like, it's going to at least be until early next year until things start opening up again.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, it was like, obviously, our government have announced that from October the 1st, they're going to try and get stadiums reopened, so obviously that the soccer can start again and things like that. And I just don't see it happening. I really think, if you're thinking you're going to get 70, 80,000 people in a football stadium, it's not going to it's not going to happen. But you're talking about obviously still getting to train in the ring. How important is that as well? Because obviously you hear guys and girls say ring rust is a real thing. So obviously how important is it to keep that training?
It's super important to keep training. It's especially right now, it's just important for the mental sake of I miss what I get to do, so I get to do it a little bit, but mostly just the physical ring rust is a real thing. And getting to practice, not wrestling like we're in a full-on match, and taking the craziest of bumps or whatever. It's just training, but being able to hit the ropes and stretch and do little warm-up drills and blow-up drills with friends and stuff is fun, and it keeps us busy.
Yeah, that's something that a lot of people have said that we've spoken to. They haven't been doing the wrestling bookings, but just mentally being able to do some training really helps, because it's not so much about the bumps, it's about mentally just staying active. Because obviously, as independent wrestlers, most weekends you're wrestling. If you're not wrestling, you're training. And when the pandemic hit, some people haven't been able to do any of that. So if you still have been able to train, it's a massive bonus, and at least you have been able to, keep active to some degree.
Yeah, it's the best. I'm really lucky that I have a school like 20-ish minutes from me that Matt Seidel trains at, so I'm able to like rent that school if I need to and train there and bring some of my girlfriends and do stuff and whatever.
Yeah.
That's not a bad guy to be trained by as well, I'm guessing as well. Matt Seidel.
I haven't actually trained under him yet, but it's his school, and like he teaches there like the beginner classes and such. But yeah, it's the Sai Dojo, I think is what it's called.
Sai Dojo.
What was so going back to that, obviously your training? Am I right? You was trained by Jay Lethal. What was that like?
Yeah, I was trained by him and Angelina Love, and it was really good. I had a good experience training. I look back fondly on those days. They were fun. Learned a lot. They were both really good trainers, I'd say, for things in and out of the ring.
Yeah, Jay Lethal is like one of those guys who's done so much in his career. I remember watching Jay Lethal when early days of Ring of Honor, like when he was still at high school, I believe, like he hadn't even graduated yet or something, and Jay Lethal was still a big name then. And he's just consistently been such a good performer. He's a multiple-time Ring of Honor World Champion. He must have had a lot of knowledge to pass down to anyone he trains, really, because he's been in the ring with everybody.
Yeah, I definitely learned a lot from him. And like, what's helpful with him knowing so much was that like any specific things like we wanted to learn, he was able to help us with. Like I am like by my size, I'm not like a power move kind of person. So he was able to help me learn more like technical wrestling or like high flying stuff that I could use in my arsenal. So really like just knows a lot too. So does Angelina.
Yeah. So
yeah, what was that like? Because obviously you don't really hear much about Angelina Love training people. What was it like training from Angelina? Because we actually met her at Starcast a couple of years ago, and she was such a sweetheart.
She is. She's like my mommy. Yeah. I love her dearly. She didn't like start as a trainer. She like lived nearby at the time and found out about Jay's school. They obviously knew each other from like TNA and other wrestling shows and whatever. But so she just started coming to our school and helping out in the classes and stuff, and really helped myself and the other girl in our class, Aspen Rose, like really helped us like figure out like female things in wrestling, like female only promotions, things to look out for as a woman in the business.
Yeah.
Gear things, travel things, whatever have you, just like really being a mom. So I was lucky to have her too.
Yeah, I think that's good that you've had obviously the training from Jay Lethal would have been invaluable, but then also having Angelina Love and basically telling you what to expect as a female in the business is quite important too, and something you won't get from a male trainer, obviously. So it's good that you've had both sides of the coin, training from one of the best in the world in Jay Lethal, but also one of the most accomplished female wrestlers in like TNA history in Angelina Love.
I know, like when I first saw her training, I was like, I used to watch you and I was like a teenager and I loved you and you're my favorite because we're both blonde and blah, blah, blah. That was cool.
So was you a big fan of TNA growing up then?
Yeah, I watched WWE first, but because my brother was into it. And then I remember like just seeing another like on the TV guide, it just said wrestling. And I was like, well, this must be the same thing. And obviously it wasn't. But yeah, I watched that pretty off and on for a long time too.
Yeah. So when was it roughly like you got into TNA then? Who was on top at the time? Was it AJ Styles?
Yeah, because I got into WWE in late 2008. Wrestling in general, late 2008. So probably like 2009 was when I started to expand my viewership more.
Yeah. So did you think it was like, I think a lot of us thought this. When I was younger, I thought it was just WWE. And then I watched WCW, which is showing my age a bit now, but I watched WWE, then WCW, found out about TNA, and then I found out about the Indies. So like, you just like live in this WWE bubble for a few years. And then as soon as you find out there's wrestling outside, it's...
I'm just like, you're showing your age. When I was watching wrestling, it was WWE and NWA, right? Yeah, so I'm showing my age now, right? I started watching in 1988. So
cool.
I wasn't even born.
Right, exactly.
I wasn't either.
Right, okay. Let's change the subject, right? I'm an old man. But no, I was the same. You just thought, obviously, before I knew NWA, it was WWE. I saw Hulk Hogan and Randy Savage and like just blown away by these larger than life guys. Who was it? Who drew you in when you first started watching? Who was the guy or the girl you thought, wow, this is cool?
Jeff Hardy, forever and always, is my favorite wrestler. He naturally just made me want to keep watching wrestling because I'm like, he's very colorful and he does all types of really cool stuff in the ring. And the storylines at the time were really good in late 2008, early 2009.
Yeah.
Especially like going into the feud with Matt and everything.
Yeah.
And the storyline of like the house burning down and all of that. I was just like, what? This is crazy. I have to keep watching this. So that really captivated me. And then the first match I actually remember like seeing was a Divas match. And it was Maurice versus Michelle McCool for the Divas title, and they had Maria as the guest ref. So like I always like Maurice and Michelle McCool are like some of my favorites. So Maria too, but she was just the ref. But those two, I remember like that match, and it was really fun. And I was like, girls can do this. I love this. And it's not like, because before that, like I knew of female wrestlers. I was like, I had watched like VH1 reality shows and seen like China, and I was like, well, I'm certainly no China. So seeing like more, I don't know if it's a normal bodied, but women like Maurice and Michelle McCool like gave me more inspiration to want to pursue it.
Yeah, I think that's something that's come to light now with the women's revolution, which has happened, especially like I'd say it started in Impact because they've always had a good women's division. And then it was like we took note of that and then did it themselves. But I think wrestling, women's wrestling as a whole nowadays is like, it's seen as a main event worthy thing. Like for some reason, it never used to be before. But people are realizing like women can do this now. They can be main events, which is fantastic. And representation is so important. And like you said, you didn't realize there was women wrestlers maybe outside of China, for example. But I think what's cool nowadays is everyone knows women's wrestling exists, and everyone knows it's really, really good. And I don't think you had that before.
Yeah, I definitely agree, because like when I started watching, like there was women's wrestling, but it's like certainly was not the same as what we have right now. It was like 3-ish minute matches, and like that's impossible to really do much of anything. You got to really be like just so you have no time to tell like a proper story, really.
Yeah.
I guess the only real story that I can think of in 3 minutes that you can really tell is maybe like a squash match. And that's not what we want.
Never really told a good story in 3 minutes. And you have to establish yourself and then, have the match. And the fans really aren't going to remember 3 minutes of a 2-hour show.
Yeah, no, like it sucks if you're tuning in for those 3 minutes, especially like as a woman, you're like, I get to see the women, and it's like, oh, blink and you miss it. So seeing it go from something like that referred to as like things like the bathroom break matches, like go from that to where we're at now with main events and stuff is really cool. And like, I feel fortunate to be part of wrestling at this time.
Definitely. And I think what always got me is the women who were wrestling those 3 minute matches. It wasn't because they weren't good performers either. They were incredible. Like Victoria, for example, she's one of my all-time favorite female wrestlers, and Michelle McCool, like
we were just saying before we rang, we was actually talking about how good Michelle McCool was. You know, so
yeah.
It really is, yeah.
It makes you wonder, like, what they could have done with, like, today's landscape with women's wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
They'd be in some of the greatest matches around right now, especially like Michelle McCool. I think she'd have thrived in today's day and age.
Yeah, and like Melina, Beth Phoenix, others. Like, it's not that they didn't want to. I feel like a lot of people also kind of get that misconception that like a lot of them were just like, oh, pretty faces, or but like no, they were like real athletes. They just unfortunately didn't always get the chance to prove it.
Yeah, they didn't always have the platform like there is now. Yeah, I think for some reason that there was, like you said, there was a stigma of it being like a backroom break match, which was never.
Yeah.
And it's taken so many years for it to get out of that stigma. And now it has. People, like, it speaks for itself. Some of the highest rated segments on TV shows nowadays are the women's matches. Like in WWE, I think it was in NXT recently. I think it was Sasha Banks and Io Shirai had one of the highest rated NXT segments of the last few years. And volumes. And it's really good to see like more eyes on it nowadays and people taking it seriously. Is there anyone from like the past in say WWE or Impact with the Knockout division, who would you want to get in there with if you could choose anybody?
Ooh, I always have different answers to this because there's so many people, but I've consistently said Beth Phoenix.
Beth Phoenix.
Yeah,
she was ahead of her time really as well, because even in that era of say like 3-minute matches, she did manage to tell a story just with how she presented herself. Like
she's different,
and you knew what she was about, and her moveset was incredible as well. Like
as much as I'm like, oh, Kelly's cute, and oh, they're doing a cute little bikini segment. It's like she's a real wrestler. Like Beth had like the background on the indies and in Shimmer and in OVW and stuff. So it was like legit like respect. Like she knows what and high school wrestling shit. Like she's just good and loves wrestling. So it made her different to me too.
Would you have any interest in coming to the UK to mix it up with the women over here, because there's some incredible talents in the British wrestling. Like we've got quite a few female-only promotions here as well, which always do really well. But even outside of that, like the female wrestlers here are incredible. Do you have any interest in coming over here and doing that?
Absolutely. I am especially interested in learning more of like the British style technical wrestling, that too. It just like works better for my body, and I learned a little bit from Saraya Knight at a Rise seminar, like on a Shimmer weekend. So learning like a little bit of British style from her was really cool. So to like expand that and visit the women's only promotions out there, because the scene seems to be like really great for women and like safe and comfortable, and just the shows look really cool too.
That must have been fun with Saraya Knight as well, because we've had a few people on before telling us stories and that. Basically, that she's crazy. So that must have been something special for you to learn from her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was fun. It was a 2-part seminar with her and Colt Cabana, and it was like almost 4 years ago, I want to say, in Chicago, and it was really fun. We learned on the second floor of the Berwyn Eagles Club, so not even like in a ring, but just like throwing each other on the floor and shit. It was fun.
Colt Cabana is a big fan of the British style, isn't he? Like the world of sport, catch as catch can style. And I think he's got a future as a full-time trainer in some school, just to teach the technical side and the British wrestling style. He knows the British wrestling style better than a lot of British wrestlers. Like he's that good. It must have been fun learning from Colt Cabana.
Yeah, he helped us with like technique a lot, which was really helpful. Like, because you always like, it's boringish to revert back to the simple things, but it's so necessary. So like to have someone like him like fine pick like the little things for us and help us really rebuild that foundation, or learn new things too. It was fun.
Yeah, and it is all about having that foundation, because a lot of people say like the most important things in wrestling is doing the basic things really well. If you can do the basics really well, then you can be a solid worker, a safe worker, and you'll get bookings everywhere. Like, people aren't always expecting you to do like a shooting star 450 press, but they want you to be a safe worker who has the fundamentals. And Colt Cabana seems like someone who could really train that really well, because he does so many different styles of wrestling. He's got like a bit of lucha. He's got comedy. He's the best comedy wrestler in the world, if you ask me. Did you learn any comedy wrestling from Colt Cabana?
No, I didn't. No.
Is it something you'd ever want to do? Because I can imagine doing comedy wrestling is hard, right?
Yes. Well, I've done a few comedy matches, like in Shine Wrestling one time I came out dressed as Jordan Grace, and I had like a neck pillow and like my butt, and like snapped a bodysuit over it, and like taped my wrist, came out with a water bottle, like made a complete just dumbass of myself. So I really like comedy wrestling. I like doing comedy spots. Like, I like doing anything that's like entertaining, that's not just straight like let's beat each other up. Like, I like it to flow nicely.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've got to ask you now as well, because like I'm a big fan of the Spoiled Brats. So I mean, how long have you known Salina long? Or, I mean, how did that come about?
Known her for, I think, going on 5 years. We met because we were both friends with Santana Garrett, and we were going to, like, I was training with her one morning, and then Salina was doing like a photo shoot with her later that day. So like, Salina and I both got to the wrestling school before Santana, so we just got to talking amongst ourselves. And like, at first I was like, "You're really chit chatty," and I was like, "You're kind of annoying," but then we ended up wrestling each other like later that month. She had like just started wrestling, so like I didn't know her at all, and I was only like 2 or 3 years in the business. But I was still kind of like, who are you? So we wrestled, and we had good matches, and we really bonded because we wrestled 2 days in a row at an outdoor bike festival for American Combat Wrestling. And it was really fun. I still have like some of the pictures from that match, and we've been inseparable ever since.
Yeah, I am a spoiled brat, Mark. I will.
Good.
Well, my hands up. I just think it's great. I really do. But obviously, speaking of Salina, obviously, is an MLW. We saw you with Dynasty. How did the MLW gig come about? Because I thought that was great seeing you with those guys. We've actually got Richard Holliday coming on in a few days as well.
Oh, my love, yes.
Yes. So how did the whole MLW gig come about as well?
It came about because I knew MSL, who is the head of talent and does creative and boss type level things in MLW. So he brought me in originally just to do like backstage interviewing and stuff, because he knew I had like a legitimate journalism background. So like me interviewing people and like having a wrestling background just kind of went together. So and at the time I had a shoulder injury, so I couldn't wrestle or anything.
Mm-hmm.
But originally brought me in for that, and I ended up being so good that they brought me in as a valet for Joey Janela, and that happened. And then I became a valet for MJF, and that happened. And then MJF left the company.
We've got to touch on it while you mentioned MJF. What was it like working? I don't even want to say with a character like that, because let's face it, that's not a character. What was it like working with MJF?
It was fun. Because like, I think I have a different relationship with him than most people do. So like, he won't be a dickhead to me mostly. Like there's been times where I'm like, but like, it's fun. It's funny to see the way he talks to people.
I love it.
It's It's like
You
almost like awkward to be around.
Yeah, well, you watch him and you're like, is he in character or is he really a dick?
He's one of those.
He's so good.
He's one of those kind of people where if I saw him out of character and he seemed nice, I'd think that's him playing a character. Like if he was
nice,
I'd think that's him being fake. Like it's just so good. I think he's on my bucket list for interviews, but only because I want him to absolutely rip me apart. Like
yeah.
I mean, he's a guy who, like you say, I guess he's got the character work down to a T, hasn't he? Really, it's like you're convinced he's genuinely an asshole. So I mean,
I won't have anyone tell me otherwise. It's got to be. You can't be that good at playing and be nice. Okay.
I feel like remaining in character and the importance of character is one of the things I kind of picked up from him. Like I'm like, oh, that's really, really important because you're pretty good at it, kid.
Well,
but
it works. Yeah. Like I know it's hard to keep kayfabe in 2020 with social media, and even interviews like this sometimes can take people out of it and be like, oh, this is what they're actually like. But it's hard to keep that level of kayfabe, but he manages it. And how do you find it? Is it a challenge for you?
Yes, because like I'm a brat, but I'm not like in the ring it's turned up to level 10. So like, and it's in such a weird day where if like an age where if I like pop off on someone on Twitter, it's like, well, I'm literally just being a brat, but it's not going to come off that way. And then there's a swarm that'll want to kill you and stuff.
Yeah,
so
that happens, right?
I can't be as mean, I feel like, but
I've learned the social media and Twitter. I just hit the block button. I don't even go into arguments with people.
Yeah.
You're never going to change an idiot's mind. So
yeah,
I found the block button is my best friend. It's the greatest thing.
I think that's how I am with the mute button.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it is.
I mute everybody nowadays. I felt like I needed to make my timeline less toxic, so I just went and muted a lot of people, and I've been less angry ever since. I used to go on Twitter and be instantly angry at like the first 5 posts, and I was like, I don't need to do this, so I just got rid of it. But I mean, as a wrestler, obviously you're gonna have a lot more followers and interaction than say we do. Is that how on that same sense? Is it still hard to keep your character? I know you said like it's just you turned up, but is there like a middle ground where you can still be yourself, but also your character?
Yes and no. Because to be my character, I mean, like I said, in the ring, I'm just like, it's different because I'm wrestling at that moment. I'm literally portraying a character, but it can be different to read it online and interpret it a different way. So kind of got to tread lightly. I honestly try not to just like tweak too much because it's like just you don't want any accidents or anybody freaking out on you.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. There's people that are better at it, like Max. Like he has no problem just being a dick and like dealing with whatever comes his way from it. I like actually I think have a little bit of a heart because I'm like, oh, I feel kind of bad, or like, oh, maybe this person's like just an idiot and I'm being mean.
Yeah. Well,
they deserve it.
That's right, though. I mean, there will be people like who, even with us, they'll send us a tweet or something, and I'll just mute them because it's like you might just be having a bad day, and I can't help people. Like I don't want to like enable them to feel any worse or anything. So I kind of have a bit of a morality thing when it comes to social media. But,
that's what I call it.
I think there's like you said, there's a few wrestlers who really do like go out of the way to interact and fight back with some of the fans, and I think it's just a waste of time. Just don't even go down that rabbit hole, because even as a fan, if you say the wrong thing, you can wake up and you'll have about 100 notifications of people just saying never, and I'm like, oh god, I'm glad I'm not a wrestler because I don't think I'd be able to deal with social media.
that'll give me so much anxiety. Like I really don't use it that much. Like if I have more than 2 notifications, I'm like, but I try to literally just go on and like refresh it and try to spend like maybe 20 seconds on the app, and like if I see anything negative or whatever, I just close it. If I see something that looks important, like I'll look into it. But generally I try to spend a lot of time on Instagram instead.
I'm the same. I'm exactly the same. I very rarely go on Twitter. I leave that to him.
Instagram is
good idea.
Toxic. And to be fair, I don't even think I'd go on Twitter if it wasn't for our podcast. It's just a really good tool for a podcast, unfortunately. But yeah, Instagram seems like a nicer place. You can ignore things a lot easier. It's just nice pictures for the most part.
But that's it. The way I look at Instagram is it's a photo album. It's a memory book.
Yeah.
You know, I can go back and look at pictures from 6-7 years ago when I was in my very, very late 20s. And it's nice just to go back and look at, and there's no morons coming at me and having a go for this and that. And it's nice.
You can find them if you look in the right places, but for the most part, Instagram is much better. And dare I say it, even TikTok and stuff like that are much less toxic than Twitter.
Yeah.
Like I like TikTok. I don't know if
it's never made me sad.
I like it. There's no one's really bad. Everyone's just having a laugh.
I don't understand.
But yeah, Twitter,
Okay,
it's like people go on just to be angry. And I can't deal with that.
But speaking of, obviously, before we wrap things up soon as well, you had a big smile on your face when I said we've got Richard Holliday on in a few days. What was it like for Richard then? I mean, what are we to expect?
Oh, he's a sweet little bean. I love him. He won't be as dick to you as Max, but he's smart. You'll find that out. He always forever has turned down my advances to flirt with him, so like that's a problem. But no, I just do it jokingly because like he is like a friend. But no, I like him. You guys will have a good interview, I think.
Yeah, he seemed really touched that we reached out, and he was really, really appreciative. So we'll make sure we mention that we had you on before him, obviously.
Yay! Best friend, Aria Blake.
Oh man, but obviously, what was the whole Dynasty thing like though? I mean, that must have been a great learning curve for you as well. Because I absolutely loved it.
I loved it. I would go back to it. It was really fun. Our dynamic meshed so well together because like we're all like literally just friends, and our personalities work together. Our gimmicks all work together. We look good together. Like one of my favorite moments was in Cicero Stadium in Chicago, like last summer, I think. And it's when the boys won the tag team ladder match that I helped them win. And like that's one of my favorite memories just in wrestling. It was really fun. It was a lively night. So I miss it.
Yeah, I remember watching that actually because we get MLW in the UK on a Monday evening. It's about midnight, 1 a.m. So obviously I record it. I watch it the following day, and it's one of my highlights of the week to me. So there's some really good stuff going on at MLW, and I do remember that match. Very clearly. But more importantly as well, what's next for Aria?
What's next? Well,
domination.
Maybe, yeah. I'm not quite sure in terms of wrestling because who knows where that's going right now. I'm an independent wrestler, so I can go anywhere if anybody's listening and wants to hire me. I'm just gonna keep training. I'm going to see my boyfriend next week, so I'll be able to train in Las Vegas for a little bit. Other than that, just hoping wrestling comes back.
Hopefully, real soon.
And selfishly, I'd like to see the Spoiled Brats as well.
Me too.
Yes.
Bring them to the UK.
Yes.
Yes. If someone wants to stop being a manager for 5 minutes, I would be happy to.
Bless. But yeah, so obviously before I wrap up, is there anything you want to, obviously there's no shows like you said, but Do you want to plug anything, promote anything?
Any merchandise?
Yes, so it's prowrestlingtees.com/Aria Blake. I got a couple shirts up on there. Instagram is the Aria Blake, and Twitter is I'm Aria Blake. So they're different, but fuck Twitter. Follow me on Instagram.
And here's the thing as well. We have this thing now, don't we? I seem to buy everybody who comes on and talks to us. I then go and buy some of their merch. So
he never has any money left.
It's becoming a thing now. So I will now have to go and buy some of your merch.
Yay!
So
what about you?
Oh, he'll buy some as well. I'll make sure he buys some.
I'll get some.
Good.
So don't worry about my rent. I won't pay that for the month. I will go and buy. But I will genuinely. That's what I do now, isn't it? I go and buy people's merch.
Which gets really expensive when you have about 10 interviews a week and he's buying everyone's merch. And then he's like, oh, I don't have any money left to go to the pub. You know, he's bought everyone's merch. He can't make rent.
It's worth it.
It happens. They're so important.
It's worth it.
Yeah, I just don't. No, I can't. I was going to say I don't feed the cat, but I do.
You do.
I do. Yeah, that's horrible if I say that. But no, Aria, it's been a pleasure. I'm so glad we got to speak to you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
I got to mention the Spoiled Brats. Like I say, I think you guys are great.
Thank you.
It's been fantastic. But yeah, thank you so much for coming on. We've been Ringsiders.